But once you can get your hands on data and figure out how to really harness it, everything takes off from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the eComm Growth Show. Let's go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the eComm Growth Show. I'm super excited today because today we have Emily McGuire with us, who specializes in email marketing and doing email campaigns. A little fun fact, she's generated over $80 million for her clients just through email. So really excited to see what we can learn from you today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. So excited to be here. And I love to have an audience to yak about, I don't know, just geek about email.
Perfect. Well, I know I'm eager to learn, and I'm sure everybody else listening is as well. So why don't we start by you just telling us a little bit about your personal life, the work you do, and why it's meaningful to you.
Yeah. So I live in Michigan, which I went over, but I live here with my husband and 4-year-old. My son just turned 4, which is crazy. And I run my own email marketing and automation boutique out of my home, like everybody else right now, right? Everybody's working from home. So I got into email like a lot of people I've met in the profession, where I started a social media job for a brand in-house. And they were like, "Oh, you do computer things. You want to do this other computer thing, email?" And I love to learn. So I was like, absolutely. I want to dig into something new and different, and discovered that I liked it way more than social media.
Wow.
And I like it because it has the power to do email sequences, which is basically like just a very long form conversation through email, right? Mm-hmm. And it has that power of building relationships in that way and delivering that sort of one-to-one personalized content. And so I fell in love with it, and then moved on to another e-commerce company. So the first company they were like a specialty food gift kind of store.
Okay.
Had a store and e-commerce, so they had the brick and mortar fun, which is a whole other beast. Brick and mortar and e-commerce. Oh Lord, yeah. So then I moved on to another e-commerce company, a very large e-commerce company, where I worked on a team of email marketers. That's all we did was email. And I learned so much through these people who had originally been catalog marketers, and catalog the company for like 4 years and more into an e-commerce company. And so it was this really rich experience of learning really time-tested strategies of direct marketing, as well as I got to sort of bring them up to speed into new digital marketing tactics and trends, and it was so much fun to learn from them and test like crazy. Tested everything, and learned so much from testing. And then so that was in North Carolina. I was living in North Carolina at the time, and then I had my son, and we decided to move back to Michigan, where our family was. And they still are here, luckily. And was looking around for another email marketing job, and because I only wanted to do email. I've been the generalist, and of course now I'm an entrepreneur, and so I'm a generalist on a lot of things now.
Right. Yeah.
So didn't quite get out of that, but I love email, and I only wanted to focus on that, and didn't find the right fit. So I just made my own job.
That's
and
awesome.
Now we're here.
That's super awesome. I really resonated with you said the company you're working for said, well, you do this on the internet, you do social media, how about doing this? And I feel like when I'm trying to explain what I do to people who aren't like in the industry, they just put everything that they've experienced on the internet, and they associate it with you. And especially too, when I mentioned anything about marketing, I found that some people will they'll just pin me down for something totally unrelated, like
Exactly.
a weird experience they had on the internet, and they think I'm responsible. And it's just like everything that happens on the internet is all like just compiled into one thing. So that's super funny. But in your case, it ended up being a really positive thing where it actually led you into email marketing.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I get that too. Like, oh, you know, internet. I saw this internet thing.
You know, internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that happens with email too. Like people, when I tell people, I mean, half the time people don't understand what email marketing is and never heard of it. And the other time they're like, oh, I've got this email problem with sending my emails to my coworkers. Can you help? And it's like, that's not. But sure, we'll talk about it.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to ask some specific questions about email marketing, but really quick, can I just ask you, what are like some of the biggest mistakes that you see taking place in the email marketing world?
Yeah. I mean, how long do we have? No. So some of the most common mistakes I see people make is well, one, so this goes without saying most of the time, but I still have these conversations, so I still bring it up, which is making sure that people gave you permission to email them. You know, in the United States, it's not illegal to email somebody who hasn't given you permission. But GDPR in the EU, right? Like it applies to EU citizens no matter where they are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that permission-based marketing is, you know, just staying compliant with that. And it's just good relationship building, right? Like nobody wants to be solicited to, well, very few people want to be solicited to by somebody they've never heard from. So again, that's a given most of the time, but sometimes it needs to be said. The other thing is people just dumping somebody on their email list without welcoming them or warming them up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like joining a conversation halfway through it when you start getting emails from people and you're just like, I don't know what's happening right now. You know, like they have some promotion that they're working on and assume that, you know, just because you join the email list right now means that you'll get up to speed, right? So having that like a welcome series is really beneficial to introducing your brand, getting the right products and services in front of them for newbies. And it can be super targeted and helpful. And then the third one is not having clearly defined goals for your email marketing, which, you know, I run into this no matter what size the company, you know, from solopreneurs to enterprise level companies, when they tell me, you know, my emails aren't doing well, what am I doing wrong? My first question is always, well, what are goals? And how are you measuring those goals? And often there isn't an answer. So how do you know if your emails are working or aren't if you don't have clearly outlined goals for them? And that's like establishing that base will help you move in the right direction every time.
Dang, that's awesome. So you said you definitely want to bring people on with sort of a warm-up series, a welcome series. When you're thinking about building that out for somebody, do you have like a rule of thumb in terms of how many days you take to warm somebody up before they just start getting regular email campaigns, all the promotions, everything like that? Or how do you start to unpack what that welcome series should look like?
Yeah, so it depends on, I mean, like everything, it depends on your business. But it also largely depends on the length of your customer sales cycle. And that tends to be longer the more higher end items you are selling. So, right, like it takes somebody a little bit longer to make a decision to buy a $900 product than it would a $200 or a $20 product, right? That is a longer buying decision cycle. So the more expensive it is, the longer I would recommend warming people up, because again, it's a bigger decision. It takes them longer to decide, and you want to help them decide, right? So that's sort of the first place to start. And then it's just a matter of, what your brand voice is, who your customers are, how long they stay on your list, and what it is you have to offer them and the type of content you have to offer them. Often it's great to just get it going and started, right? Just having one as opposed to not having one is 10 times better. And that gives you a really great base to see, okay, what are people responding to? What aren't they? And how do we refine and build out from there?
That's awesome. And then you mentioned having clearly defined goals. In email marketing, what are some of the most common goals that you see? Like if somebody isn't familiar with setting goals for what they're doing with their list, how would you get them thinking in the right direction?
Yeah. So often, the really cool thing about email is that with most email service providers, if you have it set up correctly, you can see how many orders and revenue were generated per email. So often what people might have a revenue goal, right? For specific email campaigns, or what email should be producing over a certain period of time. That's the most common one, because it is the most visible one.
Yeah.
But the trap you get in there is once you start seeing or money rolling in from email, the more emails you send, the more money you will see coming in from emails, right? But the thing that people don't often look at is the churn from their email list accelerates once you start sending more emails. So you start losing people more often. So then you have to start chasing more email subscribers. So it becomes this hamster wheel you're running on, trying to replace unsubscribed email subscribers for every dollar that you're earning, essentially. So that's sort of the trap you can fall in when you start looking at only revenue. The best way to measure goals is to look at customer lifetime value, but not everybody has that kind of data, right? To see, based on customers who have a really high volume or high value, how are they interacting with emails, right? Like how many are they receiving? How many are they getting before they purchase or unsubscribe? But again, not everybody has that data.
Yeah. And so is there are you mainly getting this data through something like Klaviyo, or are you guys going in depth and using like a service like Hyros, which is a big attribution tool to really track LTV? Or what is your preferred setup for being able to track some of that?
Yeah, so if you've got a really good Google Analytics person, you can track through a Google Data Studio. But most of the time, most smaller companies won't have those kind of resources, right? They haven't invested in it yet. But once you can get your hands on data and figure out how to really harness it, everything takes off from there, because then you can really start drilling down into it. But yeah, most of the time I see people working in like Google Analytics or Google Data Studio, because you can hook everything up that way too.
That's awesome. And then when you kind of look out across the industry as a whole, and you're subscribed to a few stores that you like and shop with, do you see anything that people are doing well that you want to like reinforce and encourage people to continue doing? What are some of the things that you see most people are doing good?
Yeah, so there are, I really love brands who have fun with their emails, which they get their audience essentially, right? I also see a lot of people who treat email like it's an old school paper newsletter, and they're just sort of like cramming as much information in it as possible, which is not a really great user experience. But there are some brands out there who keep it concise, they keep it light, and they have fun while promoting their products and services. So there's that company, they're the company Bando. They make like planners and paper crafts and kind of things like that, some clothing things. They always have a really great time in their emails. And then there are also the they call them bro tailors. Yeah, Shinesty. Have you seen any of their emails?
No, I might have to go check it out though.
They're always hilarious and fun. And yeah, the copy is always super clever, and they play around with their subject lines and then also the sender names of their emails to play off of the content in it. And it's always super clever and great.
That's awesome. I think those are some of my favorites, is when it's actually just feels fun and humorous. I really like when people have a good sense of humor in their email marketing. And those are the ones that I tend to click on and open. And I actually end up, it creates a customer out of me because eventually I've enjoyed it so much that I want to buy. So I really like emails that are, like you said, just fun. Maybe they're funny. And then if I'm getting to the point where I'm becoming like a pretty, so take for example, like Lululemon, I like Lululemon clothes. If I am like interested in buying something, just the really visual emails, sometimes those work well on me. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what, some of the overall statistics are on like an email that's very, graphics based, tons of product images. But sometimes when I'm like really warm, that's just what I want to see. And I'm almost shopping from the email. But then, prior to that, I'm typically more so enjoying like the fun subject lines or the humorous email copy and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of testing around that of images versus just straight text, and results vary so widely. And I think it depends on your brand, it depends on your offer, and this is even within the same like business, right? Like very visual emails versus just stripped down text. Sometimes the text won, sometimes the visuals won. And so I think it's also a great idea to just switch up the layout of your emails too, just to keep them fresh and fun.
Are you always trying to put like some type of call to action in your emails?
Always, yes.
Okay.
Always, every time. And I get like some people get really anxious about doing that because unfortunately email can have a really bad name because so many people do it so poorly.
Right.
There's so many really good examples of how not to do it. But when something's usually done really well, you don't notice it, right? So it's easier to point at the bad examples. So anyway, people get really anxious sometimes about putting in a call to action. And what I would say is if your subscriber is reading an email, ready to take the next step with your business, your brand, whatever, making them go hunt down the information on how to become a customer is putting more work on them. Yeah. And your job as a marketer or as any professional, right, is to make a customer's job easier to become a customer. So including a call to action to guide people is going to help your subscriber out just as much as it's going to help you out.
That's awesome. And with what you do at your company, do you guys do any type of list building activities?
Yeah, I mean, list building is part of any continuous email marketing program. And you just always have to pay attention to it, testing it, your offers, your sign up forms, whatever it is you're using to see what resonates the best with your audience.
Cool.
So yeah, absolutely.
And do you typically do that on the website, or are you doing those through paid ads, or what's your preferred way to build a list? I know it's probably, dependent on the company. Every company is probably different, but do you have certain go-tos that are just like a standard everybody should have?
Well, I mean, always have an offer always have something to offer in exchange for an email address. You're always going to get more if you do that, whether that's like FOMO in your messaging, or a discount, which is most common, or a freebie of some kind, or even a piece of content like a buyer's guide of some sort. Having something in exchange for an email address will always increase your likelihood of getting that email address. And there are lots of ways to build a list, but having that offer is where it starts. Having a dedicated landing page for that offer, in addition to all the forms, is going to help as well. Because then you can start driving traffic to that landing page. So that might look like you mentioned, ads, to build your list that way. It might look like social media posts. That's something I see people neglect all the time, is harnessing just their organic social media presence to build their list. So, and just promoting it everywhere. So yeah, you have to drive traffic to that offer, or nobody's going to see it. So yeah, it's a multi-channel approach, but again, it depends on your lowest hanging fruit. Where are your people coming from, and what's your biggest opportunity?
Awesome. Makes sense. That's super awesome. And I think, my favorite thing about email is I just love seeing how it does increase the LTV of a client that maybe you've already acquired through paid ads. Maybe you've went out and done some different customer acquisition activities, and now you have them. They've purchased once, and maybe they haven't purchased in a while. There's so much you can do with your email marketing to just get them to continue purchasing, continue adding value to them, and increase the LTV. So that's super awesome. The eComm Growth Show is ready for your growth advice. What advice would you give to online store owners in their email marketing? Just a one line, one hitter, just some growth advice.
Growth advice is be consistent. And especially for people who are just starting out, just be consistent with sending out your emails, because the digital marketing world is a very short attention span. So you got to keep your audience warm no matter where you're at.
Cool. Well, guys, Emily, thank you so much for hopping on the eComm Growth Show today. If you guys want to continue learning from Emily, you can hit the link below, and you can go download her Boost Your Email Open Rates Action Guide for free, and she'll continue to add value into your lives, and maybe, who knows, maybe she can help you out with your email marketing as well. But again, Emily, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing some knowledge with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Is there anything else you want to say to the listeners? Is that the best place for them to get a hold of you? Or this is your chance to give yourself a little plug and make sure people can find you?
Yeah. So, hop on my email list and download the action guide. It's where I share my juiciest bits of info. And I also hang out a lot on LinkedIn. So come find me on LinkedIn. And I post almost daily about all of my ramblings about email marketing.
Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, if you enjoyed today, go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.